Okay, ready, set, and hello, my name is Gary Snodgrass. I'm an independent author, over 50 novels, um, 4 different pen names. I do well enough to where I've made a living from this for quite a while. Um, I wanted to discuss the why behind stories, the parts of the story that make it powerful. Um, the difference between nonfiction and fiction. I mean, people read fiction or nonfiction to get information. They read fiction to feel an emotion. And what is it about stories that feeds that emotion? It's only by knowing the why that we can improve the how. Um, of course, this is all just opinion based on years and years of study. It's all my way of looking at the world. Every artist will look at it differently. But I think we can discuss things enough to where it will open dialogue and discussions as to why things work and why some things don't. Um, I named this blog Plot, Character, Voice because those are the 3 pillars upon which stories are based. They rest on those. If each one of them has 1,000 variations, have 1,000,000 variations, but the things that work are pretty common. Um, and they're common because human beings are common. We're the same in the sense of, regardless of what culture you come from, regardless of what environment you come from, stories resonate. And I want to delve into the parts about resonating and why they resonate. I think that only by knowing the why can you improve your storytelling capability. Um, there are thousands of videos and books, a lot of very, very good ones, about the how. I want to delve into the why. Um, and of course, before we even get started, we need to discuss the importance of story. Why stories affect us so much. I mean, I doubt very seriously that single cell amoebas are passing stories along to each other. In fact, I believe it is story and our love for story that makes us human, that separates us. It's this ability to feel emotions based upon the words or actions of another human being. That transfer of feeling. So let's delve right into it. Why story? What is it about story? Why do we need stories so much? It's always been this way since we evolved eons ago. I would argue that it is story that helped us evolve. It is story that taught us which berries to avoid. It's stories that taught us how to hunt on the plains and in the Serengeti. It is stories passed down from father to son, from mother to daughter, from chief to tribe, that allowed us to gather the information that kept us alive long enough to reproduce. I mean, if you think about it, it is a long time, 15 years from birth before you're ready to start reproducing. And you've got to keep everybody alive that long, which means knowing things that will help you. And as we have learned, people learn only two ways. Either the information is relevant or the person telling you is relevant. But just telling you don't eat those red berries is not as powerful or as fear-inducing as a good story telling you the same thing. Example, off the cuff. Young woman, girl is kidnapped by the tribe next door. Okay, taken back to the tribe. She's alone, distressed, fearful. Her life is ruined, the life she knew. One day, she's out with the other women gathering food, and she sees the bush with the red berries that her mother told her never to eat because they will make you sick, if not kill you. So, secretly, quietly, she gathers berries. 6 one day, 12 the next, 4, and she gathers them and hides them until she has enough. Always afraid she's going to be caught and exposed. Finally, she has enough. She drops it into the stew pot. She drops them into the stew pot and stands back. People offer her food, but she denies or pretends to eat but doesn't eat. If she's discovered, she will be killed. But thankfully she's not discovered. The tribe eats the berry or the stew with the berries in it, and they all fall asleep. She runs away, goes back home. She gets home and she tells the story about the berries. Now all the little girls in that tribe who watched this, their friend, their sister, being taken away and then returning safe, all because of the berries, now associate those berries with her story and look at those berries differently. They look at them emotionally. And that story gets passed down from generation to generation, and they're less likely to take those berries. They know that they're dangerous because they felt that emotion about the story. It's different than somebody just telling you they're dangerous. I mean, it hooks you and puts a reality to the situation. Another example story. Young Johnny's going on his first hunt with his father and his uncles. He's terrified that he's going to make a mistake. The worst thing he can do is fail. He fears being laughed at. He fears the disappointment in his father's eyes. That night, before the hunt, they're sitting around the fire, and they start telling stories. The story about the time Uncle Phil fell in the mud hole because he was so focused on the animals he didn't watch where he was going. Or the time when old Jim, who was scared of this hunt, fell farther and farther behind the crowd or the group of men, and fell so far behind he was alone and taken by a lion. All they found was gnarled bones the next day. Or the story of Andrew, who was able to kill his first deer on his very first hunt when everybody else wasn't quick enough. All of these types of stories help the young boy process what is expected of him. Help the boy realize that it is possible to succeed, and here are some of the things you can avoid that will help you stay away from failure. It happened in every culture, every society, and it still happens today. I mean, um, Star Wars is a story about how a young boy grew up to become a better man. It's a roadmap. It's an emotional roadmap. If there were no emotions involved, people would listen long enough to learn. Um, we use stories to create an environment where people learn. We also use it for entertainment and for social bonding and for all the other reasons. But a story that works creates an emotion that builds inside the reader new knowledge. We don't have to learn everything through experience. We can learn through stories, which helps us avoid making mistakes, which helps us live longer. That is why stories are so important. That is why we are evolved to process stories, to enjoy stories, to create stories. It's because stories helped us as a species survive. Anything that doesn't help us survive doesn't last. For stories to have lasted thousands and thousands of years, they have to work. Not only the individual story, but the whole concept of story. It is vital to who we are. And so that's what this is about, is the whys. Um, when we will get into the different types of plots, the different types of characters, the different types of voices, the author's voice, the character's voice, the narrator's voice, um, which are all extremely important. You know, the different types of characters, uh, the match between character and plot. You know, you put the my favorite example, Cinderella. All right, imagine instead of Prince Charming, he's a 40-year-old accountant. Not the same story. Okay, doesn't create the same emotions in the reader. Um, we'll get into all of that, but mostly I just wanted to start this off by talking about how important stories are, and that as storytellers, we need to know the why so that we can shape and form the story. Um, I know that when I'm writing, subconsciously, I imagine myself around that campfire, telling a story to my uncles. Um, I had five of the greatest uncles ever, and we would go fishing and hunting in Texas. All five of them had survived World War II. Um, all five of them had grown up through the Depression. All five of them had a lot of life experiences, to say the least. All married, children, good men. Um, different away from their families when you got five brothers together. And I was 10, 12 years old and able to sit there and just take in the stories. Oh, God, the stories. Um, and I can remember now, looking back, how they would embellish and shape and shift and try and one up each one. Uh, but I learned so much because of the emotion, the the relevance of who was talking, my uncles, who I love dearly, um, the desire to impress my father by not shaming him in front of those uncles, um, the desire to learn what it meant to be a man, what actions I would have to take, how I was expected to react. Um, I remember a story about simple things about cleaning a fish and somebody, the knife slipping and cutting a hand. Don't even remember which uncle it was. But I can remember the other four uncles all ragging him about doing it wrong. And um, the laughter was very special. But what was most special was I learned how to clean a fish the right way. I never made the mistake my uncle made. Um, Simple things. Those are just examples. But that's the importance of stories. That's what it also bonded us together, bonded me with them in such a way that nothing else other than experiencing things themselves could have done. So the stories were a form of the experience, okay, um, and are vital. So when I'm writing today, in the back of my mind, I'm telling stories to them, or my aunts, or my daughters, or my sons, or my wife, or whoever. I have an audience, and I have to think about what to do in the story to create an emotion that will entertain and inform and move them in such a way that they want more story. Otherwise, why do it? So that's what this is all going to be about, is a way of delving into the why inside a story. Um, why do certain characters work? Why do we feel like certain characters and dislike others? And if we dislike them, is that good or bad? Um, why do we want the couple to get together in a love story? Um, an example: boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. Simple formula, and a million different ways of doing it. And let's say boy meets girl, girl's father is a mafia boss, refuses to allow him and her to get together. They end up running away. They're chased across the country, and eventually they convince the father to let them be together. It's a good story. Or boy meets girl, they get married and live happily ever after. That's not a story. That's an anecdote. We will get into what and why certain things are needed to create emotions. And we're talking deep emotions. We're talking animal gut reaction type emotions. The ones where you don't know why you're feeling them, but you're feeling them. And that's what the purpose of this vlog is. Okay? So if you will follow along, let me know what you think. I could very well be wasting my time here, but I just need to get all this stuff out as I go along. Okay? I've talked to hundreds of other authors, read books, hundreds of books, vlogs, and like I said, I've written close to 15 novels. That's 50. It's so hard to believe. Um, and I feel like there's information that I want to get out. Okay? These are things that we've talked about, or I've talked about with other people in depth as we try to navigate this storytelling craft. Um, so we will get into all of those: plot, character, and voice, and all of the differences and all of the whys. But in the meantime, this is just an introduction to Gary Snodgrass, just me and my opinions. Take it for what it's worth, but it's information I want to put out there, and people can do with it as they wish. Thank you. That's enough.